You walk into an open house at 2 o'clock on a Saturday. The agent looks at you for half a second, and in that half second she decides how much time you're worth. You don't see the decision being made. You feel it. She looks at you the way people look at someone who's probably not buying. Then she turns back to her conversation. There's a brochure on the table by the front door. Glossy paper, full color, a kitchen with windows looking out to the backyard. You reach for it. Your hand stops halfway because right at that moment she glances over. Not to say hello, just to check. Then she turns back. You take the brochure anyway. You walk through every room by yourself. Nobody asks your name. Nobody asks if you have questions. You stand in the kitchen and look out at the backyard and think this might be the one. You turn around to find the agent. She's exchanging phone numbers with the couple by the window. You stand there for about 15 seconds. Then you walk out. You fold the brochure and put it in your pocket. You don't even want the house anymore. It's just the only thing from that entire afternoon that was actually given to you. That brochure will look different at every level of this story. How it gets handed to you, or doesn't, ends up saying more about this whole thing than any listing price. You have a pre-approval letter, you printed it out, folded it twice, put it in the front pocket of your bag like it meant something, like carrying it made you more real. The number on that letter is enough to get through the door. Not enough to make anyone look up when you walk in. You've been on Zillow for 3 weeks, saved 28 listings, scrolled past hundreds more at 11 o'clock at night, moving the map around, doing math you're not sure adds up. You don't know exactly what you're looking for. You just know you're tired of paying someone else's mortgage. You fill out the contact form on an agent's website. Monday morning, 9:14 a.m. She responds at 12:47. Not a call. An email. 3 sentences and 3 Zillow links. No greeting, no name. Just links to houses you didn't ask for, none of them in the neighborhood you mentioned. All of them described as priced to move fast. You write back and ask about the area near the school district you researched. She sends 2 more links. You stop asking for exactly what you want. You start asking what's still available. The first showing is on a Thursday evening after work. You drive 40 minutes. You park. You walk up and she's already inside, on the phone. She holds up one finger without looking at you. You wait on the porch for 4 minutes. You don't know if you should knock again, so you don't. When she finishes the call, she opens the door wider and says, "Not hello, not good to meet you." She says, "Have you been pre-approved?" You say yes. She nods and walks inside. You follow her in and immediately wonder if you should take your shoes off. Nobody tells you. So you look at what she's wearing, realize she has her shoes on, and keep yours on too. Half a second behind everyone else, the way you felt since you got here. The showing takes 11 minutes, you know, because you looked at your phone when it started and looked again when she said she had another appointment at 6. She stands near the front door the entire time. Her phone buzzes twice. She doesn't silence it. You ask about the roof. She says it was inspected 2 years ago. You ask about the water heater. She pauses, looks toward the kitchen and says she'll follow up on that. She doesn't follow up on that. There's a housing term she uses, escalation clause, and you don't know what it means. You nod like you do. You look it up in the car. On the way out, you notice she's holding a stack of brochures. You walk past her. She doesn't hand you one. Not because she forgot. The reflex just didn't fire. The motion that says hand this to the person in front of you, it didn't activate when she looked at you. It just wasn't there. That's the part that stays with you on the drive home. Not the 11 minutes, not the word you didn't know, the stack of brochures, and the fact that your hand never got one. You drive home and replay it. Not to understand her, to find your mistake, the way you shook her hand, the order you asked your questions in, whether you should have led with the letter, whether the jacket you wore looked like someone serious or someone just looking. You don't find the mistake, but you keep looking. And somewhere between the third replay and the exit ramp, you land on a conclusion nobody handed you. You put it together yourself, from 11 minutes of data. The conclusion is that you're not quite ready for this yet. Nobody said that. You didn't need them to. Nobody told you that you didn't belong there. You watched someone hold a stack of brochures and not hand you one, and somehow you walked away believing it was your fault. 2 incomes, 1 goal. 21 months of watching the savings account grow while everything else stayed the same. You stopped eating out 4 nights a week. You stopped upgrading things that still worked. Told yourself it was temporary. Then temporary became a habit. Then the habit became a number that finally looked like something. The pre-approval this time is different. Not a maybe, a solid yes with a real number behind it. You read it 3 times the day it arrived. Then you called your partner in from the other room just to read it together. You've seen 19 houses. You know what you want. More importantly, you know what you don't want. You're not browsing anymore. You're deciding. This agent calls you back. Not an email. A call. Same day. 2 hours after you reached out. His name is Colin. He asks about your timeline before he asks about your budget. This stat feels different. You note it without saying anything. He sends a calendar invite for Saturday morning. Confirmed. No rescheduling, no porch wait. When you arrive at the first house, he's already there. He greets you by name. He hands you a brochure at the door. You take it. Glossy. Photos that make the rooms look larger than they are. In the bottom right corner, his name, his photo, his phone number. Not your name anywhere. Not anything that suggests this was made for you specifically. It was made for everyone at this price point. You are everyone at this price point. You file that away and keep walking. The house is fine. Maybe good. You're standing in the living room doing quiet math. Mortgage, property tax, what's left at the end of the month, when Colin says it for the first time. I have to be honest with you. This one probably won't last through the weekend. You nod. You look at the ceiling. You ask about the HVAC. He answers. Then says it again, slightly differently. The sellers have already had strong interest. I'd hate for you to miss it over a few days of thinking. He genuinely seems excited for you. That's the part that makes it complicated. You see 4 more houses over the next 3 weekends. Each one won't last through the weekend. Each one already has strong interest. Each one, the sellers want an answer by Sunday. By the 3rd house you start counting. Not because you're angry, because you're trying to figure out how much of it is real. Between the 4th and 5th showing you ask directly, are there actually other offers on this one? He pauses. 1 second. Maybe less. There's been serious interest. I wouldn't want to misrepresent the situation. He's not lying exactly. That's what makes it complicated. He's been doing this long enough that the urgency feels real to him too. He's not running a script. He's just been at this so long that the pressure stopped feeling like pressure to him. That sentence answers your question. Just not in the way he intended. You make an offer on house number 5. Right neighborhood, right size. The kitchen needs work, but you've looked at enough kitchens to know that's manageable. You sign the paperwork at his office on a Tuesday evening. He walks you through each page. Professional. Clear. When you finish, he shakes your hand and says he'll submit it tonight. You walk to the car, sit in the passenger seat. Your partner starts the engine. Neither of you says anything for 6 minutes. Then your partner says, if we buy this, we probably can't travel this year. You look out the window. I know, you say. You don't say anything else. Because the calculation is already done. You've both been doing it since before you signed. And the number works, technically. The month won't collapse, but it will be tight in a way that requires both of you paying attention every month for the next several years. Then you say, did we just decide that, or did he? Your partner thinks about it. Neither of you has a clean answer. You went from invisible to useful. Those aren't the same thing as valued. But at level 2, the difference is easy to miss, especially when someone is holding a deadline over everything you want. You don't check your account before scheduling a showing anymore. That sounds small. It isn't. There was a version of you that did that automatically. Opened the app, looked at the number, ran the calculation before doing anything else. That version existed for a long time. Long enough that its absence still feels slightly unfamiliar. You didn't fill out a form online this time. A colleague mentioned an agent at dinner, passed along a number, said she's good and you'll know what that means when you meet her. You texted that night. She responded in 11 minutes. Not with links, with a question. What matters most to you in the process? You sat with that for a moment. Nobody had asked you that before. Her name is Nadia. She arrives at the first showing before you. 5 minutes before. Standing outside, no phone in hand. When you pull up, she walks toward the car. Not toward the door, toward you. She uses your name at the door. Again in the hallway. Again when you ask about the foundation. You won't realize until the second showing that no one at any previous level ever used your name once. There are 2 bottles of water in the car. Cold. She doesn't mention them. They're just there. She opens each door and steps aside. Every room, every closet. She doesn't walk in first. You don't notice how deliberate that is until later. The brochure is different here. 1 copy, handed to you personally before you go inside, designed for this specific property. Inside, neighborhood overview, 5-year appreciation data, school district ratings, walkability scores, projected infrastructure changes over the next decade. Your name isn't in it, but it was made for someone who reads before they decide. You read 2 pages standing in the driveway. Nadia doesn't rush you. Halfway through the second showing, you catch something. She's describing the history of the property, previous owners, renovations, what was original. Her voice is measured, her details land exactly where they should. The pause before the window. The particular way she says natural light in the afternoon. The slight shift in tone when she talks about the neighborhood. You've just never been close enough to notice this kind of thing before. Then she says it. This feels like you. 4 words, right moment, right room, right light. And for a second, you believe her. Then you notice you did. You like Nadia. That part is straightforward. You also can't fully tell what's genuine and what's been said 200 times in rooms exactly like this one. And the not knowing is a specific kind of discomfort that doesn't show up at the lower levels. At the lower levels, nobody pretended. Here, someone does. Very well. And the quality of it is exactly what makes it hard to dismiss. Both things are true at the same time. You hold both and keep going. Because underneath all of it, level 3 gives you something the other levels didn't. For the first time in this process, nobody has mentioned another offer. Nobody has given you a Sunday deadline. The decision is still in your hands. That's new. And it matters more than you expected. After the second showing, Nadia sends a follow-up. Not a link, a note. 3 paragraphs, what you saw, questions she remembered you asking. 1 property she wants to show you next week that isn't publicly listed yet. You read it twice. Then you think about the email from level 1. 3 Zillow links, no greeting, same industry, same city, same week. At level 1, no one pretended to care. At level 3, someone cares very professionally. The gap between those 2 is harder to sit with than you expected, because one of them you could dismiss and one of them you can't. There is no open house, no Saturday morning crowds, no clipboard at the front door where you write your name next to 11 other names. There is 1 call, 1 conversation, 1 afternoon. You don't find this agent through a website. A man named Robert calls you, referred by someone in your network. That person didn't send you his website. They sent you his number with a single sentence. He handles things quietly. You didn't know what that meant at the time. You do now. Robert doesn't send listings. He asks questions first. Not about budget, about use, how you plan to live in the space, whether you travel frequently, whether the property needs to work as an asset or just as a home, whether you have a timeline or whether the right property is the timeline. That last question stops you. Whether the right property is the timeline. Nobody had ever framed it that way. Every agent before Robert had a timeline. Always urgent. Always this weekend, this Sunday, this window closing faster than you could think. Robert never checks his phone once during the call. He has no urgency. His pace is the pace of someone who has never needed to manufacture pressure because the properties he handles don't require it. The showing is on a Wednesday at 4 in the afternoon. You arrive and the door is already open. Not unlocked. Open. Like someone knew exactly when you'd get there. The lights are on. Not the overhead lights. The right lights. Warm, angled. The temperature is exact. Not cool, not warm. The kind you only notice because it requires no adjustment. There is no smell. Not cleaning products. Not air freshener. Just nothing that makes you aware of the air. Robert is already inside. He doesn't walk toward you, he lets you walk toward him. He shakes your hand once, says your name once, and steps back. Take whatever time you need. I'll be here. Then he's quiet. You walk through the house the way you've never been able to before. Without narration, without a voice at your shoulder pointing out features like you couldn't see them yourself. Without someone who has 2 more showings and needs you to keep moving. You stop in the hallway for a full minute and look at the light coming through the window at the end of it. Nobody says anything. Nobody shifts their weight. The minute just exists. Robert never checks his phone. Before you came today, he sent an email. Password protected. A link that expired after 48 hours. Inside, the full legal history of the property going back 31 years, structural reports, neighborhood sales data over the past decade, a 1-page summary of the current owners, not their personal lives, their relationship to the property, how long they'd had it, what they'd done with it, why they were selling now. You read everything before you arrived. Robert knew you would. That was the expectation. Not stated. Understood. At the end of the showing, Robert doesn't ask if you're interested. He asks one question. Is there anything you'd want to know before we continue the conversation? Not, are you ready to move forward? Not, what's holding you back? Is there anything you'd want to know? You stand in the main room and feel something you haven't felt in any previous showing. Nothing pushing you, nothing pulling you, no deadline over your shoulder, just a room and a decision. And time. On the drive home, you think about whether the stillness was genuine or calculated. You sit with that for a while, then you land on something honest. It doesn't matter, because even if everything Robert did was deliberate, the temperature, the timing, the silence, it still felt like the way a significant decision should feel. Unhurried, informed, yours. You've never had that before. Not at any price point below this one. Maybe that's what you're actually paying for at this level. Not the square footage, not the address, the right to make a decision in a room where nobody is counting the minutes. 3 words changed. Can you afford became how would you? Everything about the transaction stayed the same. Everything about how it felt was different. The house doesn't have a listing, not on Zillow, not on Redfin, not anywhere that requires a public record of availability. It exists in a conversation between 2 people, one of whom knows you, and that conversation happened before you were aware any of this was in motion. You weren't looking. The house found you. A woman named Catherine calls on a Tuesday morning. You don't know her. You know the person who gave her your number. That person didn't ask you first. Because at this level, introductions like this don't require permission. They require judgment. And the judgment was that you were the right fit for what she was about to describe. She doesn't describe it on the call. She asks if Thursday works, names a restaurant and a time, says she'll have materials for you to review before the weekend. The call is 4 minutes long. You don't ask the price. Her tone makes clear that's not where this begins. The materials arrive Wednesday evening. An email. No subject line. A link and a password in separate messages, 30 seconds apart. The link expires in 48 hours, 41 pages. Legal history of the property going back to original title. Geological survey. Structural assessments from 3 separate engineers over 15 years. A single page at the back, no header, no logo, describing the current owners. Not their names. Their relationship to the property, what they built, what they preserved, what they're hoping for in whoever comes next. You read all 41 pages before Thursday. Catherine will know this from the questions you ask. Corner table at the restaurant. Already reserved when you arrive. She thanks you for reading the document. Not, did you get a chance to look at it? She thanks you for reading it. Before anything else, she slides a single page across the table. Standard for properties at this level, just a formality. An NDA. You read it, sign it, slide it back. Not because you were pressured, because you understand why it exists. The seller values privacy above everything else in this transaction. The address is confidential until there's a mutual agreement to continue. This is how it works at this level. Not as a power move, just as a baseline condition of a discrete process. You recognize it as the first signal of what kind of transaction this is. For the next 30 minutes, you don't discuss the property. Catherine asks about your timeline, about use. whether this is a primary residence or something held longer term, about your family, not intrusively, contextually. The way someone asks when the answer affects what they recommend. Then she describes the property, not in numbers first, in character, the land, the position of the structure on it, what the original builder intended, what has been changed and what has been deliberately preserved. Then she says something you haven't heard at any level below this. The sellers wanted to make sure the family coming in would be a good fit for the land and the community around it. Not, can you afford this? The sellers wanted to make sure the family would be a good fit. You sit with that sentence. You've been evaluated at every level. At level 1, does this person have enough? At level 2, is this person close enough to a decision? At level 3, is this person at the right price point? At level 4, does this person understand what they're acquiring? Here the question is different. Your capital is assumed. Your ability to close is not the concern. The question is whether you are the right steward, whether your presence in that place will be congruent with what has been built and cared for by people who are now deciding who carries it forward. Money got you to the table. Money is not what's being evaluated at the table. At the end of the meeting, Catherine doesn't hand you anything printed. She leaves a phone number, written by hand on a small card. No logo, no company name, just her name and a number. A business card you hand to everyone is a broadcast. A number written by hand is an introduction. You look at it for a moment. You think about the stack of brochures an agent held years ago and never passed to you. The glossy paper with someone else's photo in the corner. The designed folder with 5-year appreciation data. The information got simpler as the level got higher. Not because there was less to know, because by the time you arrived here, the relationship itself carried what the paper used to. On the drive home, you think about the word fit. You've spent years building toward a number. You were invisible when it was small, pressured when it was medium, courted when it was large, and now the number is sufficient. What you're learning is that sufficiency was always just the entry condition. The actual question was never whether you could pay. It was whether you belong. And belonging isn't something you accumulate the same way. You can work toward it. You can build relationships, earn reputation, put your name in the right rooms. But some of it just requires time. The kind that started counting before you arrived, in networks and names and histories you had no part in building. That's the part nobody explains when you're standing on the porch waiting for an agent to finish a phone call. At the bottom, you prove you have enough. At the top, you prove you've had it long enough. One of those tests can be passed. The other one can only be inherited. There is a brochure on a table by the front door of a house somewhere in this city right now. Glossy paper, full color. A kitchen with windows looking out to the backyard. Someone will walk in today and not be handed it. They'll take it themselves, fold it, put it in their pocket, walk through every room alone, stand in the kitchen and look out at the backyard and let themselves want it for a moment. Then they'll drive home and replay the 40 minutes, looking for the mistake they made. They won't find it, but they'll keep looking. And somewhere in that search, they'll land on a conclusion nobody handed them directly. Put together from 11 minutes of data. That same brochure exists in different forms across this city today. A password-protected email that expires in 48 hours. A 41-page document that assumes you've read it before you arrive. A handwritten number on a small card with no logo. Same information, different form. The form is about what the system has decided you need before you're trusted with the address. The brochure didn't change. The hand-holding it did. And the hand holding it was never making a conscious decision about you. It was responding to a signal, a category assigned before you opened your mouth, before you walked through the door, possibly before you knew the property existed. Somewhere right now, a person is standing on a porch, pre-approval letter in their bag, folded twice. They don't know yet about the 11 minutes. They don't know about the brochure. They think this is about finding the right house. They'll learn. Nobody tells you where you stand. They just hand things to other people first.